I met a homeless man on Christmas Eve. Every night I take my dog for a walk around our neighborhood. I usually follow one of 3 routes. One of these routes passes by a set of glass bus stops. So I pass them a couple times a week and occasionally see a homeless person trying to shelter themselves in them. I usually just pass without incident as the homeless in my area usually keep to themselves. Last year on Christmas Eve, after getting home late from a party and putting my son to bed, it was 11:30. But my dog still wanted to go for a walk. Since it was surprisingly warm for Ohio, decided to take her for a stroll even though it was pretty late. As I passed the glass bus booth, I saw a man sitting in one. I just kept walking. As I passed, I heard him say something to me, so I turned around and pulled my earbuds out. He was asking if I smoked. I think he wanted a cigarette. I told him no, I vape, and showed him the weed pen I had. He looked confused, so I told him what it was and asked if he wanted to hit it. Of course, if you're not used to it, those things can make you cough like crazy. So while he was coughing, I chuckled a bit and apologized for the harshness. He introduced himself and said he was homeless but was waiting for someone. He wasn't dressed in dirty clothes or anything and seemed well-kept, even had a clean pair of work boots on, so I knew he wasn't living in the streets. Somehow the subject turned to welding. Okay, I'm a welder, so a lot of my conversation turned that way, but he said he was a weld inspector back in the 80s and he was making huge money in the nuclear industry. But that turned to a bad drug habit, which eventually led to losing his job, his wife leaving, and life falling apart. We talked for a bit, then he remembered he had a joint roach that he wanted to share. I'm not one for making great decisions, admittedly, and I felt bad, so I sat in the booth and smoked the small joint with him. He even opened a beer, and I took a few sips with him while we bullshitted for a while. I felt bad for him and figured he was just lonely on Christmas Eve, so I stayed for another 15 minutes until my dog was restless and mad that her walk to a stagnant turn. So I thanked him for sharing with me and shook his hand and went on my way. I have passed the bus stops many times since and have never seen him again. So I hope he's doing all right, but I always think of our Christmas smoke session. It was almost like a weird dream. I'm not much of a religious man, but it felt like it was a compassion test from God or whatever, and I hope I passed even if it was 2 potheads sharing their addiction and a little conversation on Christmas Eve.